to talk with Serim on the Let's Talk About That show. Greg is here to take away and talk about like what they do within their organization, what they're made of, and there's no better way to actually say it than what you have to bring, okay, to the table. So, Greg, what is Serum?
All right,
Introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me to join your podcast today. I appreciate it. So, as Art mentioned, my name is Greg. I've been with Serum Research for about 8 years. The company's been in the Elkhart area, founded in the Elkhart area in 1988. So the founder, Bob Boguslawski, was a R&D scientist. I believe that's the correct title for him at Bayer Corporation, and did a lot of stuff there in obviously R&D department. And from that, the test strip technology started coming about for various things. And at some point then in his history, he decided that he wanted to do that on his own versus a big corporation. And he founded Serum, like I said, in 1988. And we've been kind of going on from there. So
it's quite the history.
Yeah, it is. And all in the Elkhart area. So I think we're in our second building now. Been in that building for 20 years. So well established. All employees from the area. We try to recruit local talent for the scientific positions, the production positions, obviously, sales and marketing positions.
Keeping it local.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there's some skilled positions. Scientists, R&D scientists need to have good chemistry background. So we can do some recruiting in that area, but everyone else is local. So. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So what industries do you directly serve? Like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, because I know Serum is a research company,
right? But
like, it's interesting, really, the industry impact that you have because you service various spaces.
Right. Exactly.
I really want you kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Sure. So when we started, and our focus primarily still is in the medical markets. So we make test strips for dialysis. One of the market leaders in developing test strips used in dialysis centers today. So those are used for water quality, the sanitizing / disinfecting chemicals that are used on the equipment. So you have to test the levels to make sure that you are disinfecting the equipment properly. And then you also have to rinse the equipment so that the next patient in line is not harmed by those chemicals. So, so we make a potency test as well as then what's called residual. So you need to test the rinse solution, make sure those chemicals are washed out so the next patients are not harmed by too high chemicals in that area. So that's that. Like I said, that's what we were founded on. We were a leader in developing a lot of those tests used worldwide today. We also make a diagnostic test for H. pylori, which is the most common cause of gastric ulcers. We make a couple tests actually for hospital use for sterile processing departments, which is the department that cleans, sanitizes, sterilizes medical instruments for reuse. High-level disinfection tests, we make those when you think about endoscopes, so upper GI scopes, lower GI scopes, based on the equipment and the optics, they can't go through normal sterilization types of things. So there's a disinfection solution that are used in a very complex process that hospital staff needs to go through to make sure those are properly disinfected so they can be reused. So we make a test strip for the disinfection solutions to make sure that the chemicals are in there are above the level that kill the organisms that could get on there from that process. So those are the main areas that we deal with. We also have been growing a lot in our food safety business. So thinking about ways to expand our business, we have the medical test strips. A lot of the chemicals, chlorine, quats, water hardness, pH, they're not chemicals, but they're used in the food industry as well. So food growers, producers, sanitation. The growers or producers, you think about a big manufacturing plant that processes fruits and vegetables, things like that. So they have to clean, disinfect, sanitize the equipment. Local restaurants have to clean, sanitize pots and pans.
Right.
Yep. So there's exactly. So we make test strips for those, and by and large, all our test strips are dip and read, meaning you have the solution mixed up, you dip it in there for a certain length of time, take it out, look at it. All of our products have color blocks on the labels so the end user can match that up. I should have brought one along for show and tell, but
we can just pop it up.
I'm sure you can. Well, there you go. So you can.
If you look over here,
there you go. So
let's look over
the magic of editing. You can do lots of
that's
stuff
right
like
there.
that. So
well, and what's interesting is how the product is different compared to, I know some people have seen test strips, right?
Yes.
And how they're different because of the science and the accuracy.
Yep.
I think that's important too, to really consider. It's these aren't just your average test strips, there's a lot of science that goes into the accuracy, and that's what makes Serim a global leader.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly
so,
right.
I'm going to throw that out
so
there.
That's a nice plug. Thank you very much.
Elkhart.
Yeah.
Global leader.
Yep. We are. So and that's exactly
talk
right.
About that. Because I think that's interesting. That hey, we're in Elkhart, Indiana, and you're a global company, and we may or may not over here at ViviScape have a little insight on hey, you guys get inquiries around the world. Asking for your product, not going out and just selling it. They're seeking out your product because of its reputation, right? And the accuracy. So talk a little bit about that.
Right. So, and that's a good point. I think almost everyone is used to test strips some way, somehow. If you think about maybe a science class you had in high school where you had the litmus paper type of test strip, which is a roll of paper, and you dip it in and it changes colors with the solution, usually looking at pH, which is hydrogen levels in water. Right. So those change colors. People with swimming pools are used to looking at chlorine levels. They might use a test strip for that. So being our products are used in the medical industry, as you say, Art, the science is there. It takes more time, effort, and energy to develop those. I mentioned the dialysis products. Those are all medical devices approved by the FDA, which means we have to do a lot of research, collect a lot of data showing the tests work as expected. And then we have to submit all that data to the FDA to get the registration for that, which is a big selling point then when you talk about worldwide.
Right.
Because with dialysis centers treating people,
you won't be able to get your product in there.
Exactly. Having that medical
Yeah.
device certification registration is very important. So you mentioned worldwide. Interestingly, I was emailing with someone in Senegal this morning.
Oh, nice.
So we do get inquiries through our website almost every day. And many of them are for outside the U.S. And so the person I was talking with in Senegal was wanting to place an order for some dialysis products, but they were wondering what the differences were between two products. So when is this one used versus when's that one used? So so I answered the question for them. And interestingly, with the time difference between the U.S. and other countries, I'll find out tomorrow what else they wanted to know. So
just shoot it out in the air and see okay.
Yep, exactly.
Any more questions?
Exactly.
I'll ask you tomorrow.
It's cool how those strips work. And I remember the last time you were here, it had a little case to put them in when you put them in the basket for what's a dishwasher type of thing.
So you're talking about the test strips we make for sterile processing in the hospital setting. So those are used. They go in the I like to say they're industrial strength dishwashers.
Was that your Pinnacle
that is
product?
That is the Pinnacle product line. Very good. So
Pinnacle for detergent testing.
That's
Pinnacle.
right. So there's a product shout out. So
that just happened. Yes,
exactly.
Just happened.
But yes, we brought that along when we were here last, and it's that goes in the washers and ultrasonic cleaners in the hospitals. They need to test those units every day that they're in operation to make sure that they are working properly. So they look at the parameters of the equipment. Is the cycle time correct? Is the temperature correct? Is there water pressure coming in? And then importantly, is there enzymatic detergent in the system? Because
and it helps make sure that everything's clean and ready to be used.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and then in some aspects, and not that I'm an egghead, but we spend a lot of time kind of working with Serim and being able to catch some of the instances saying, are they changing the detergent?
Right.
Like
Yep.
that's a big thing, because if you're sanitizing and you're not regularly changing the detergent,
Yep.
that could be an issue.
Right.
You're not cleaning properly.
Exactly.
So, and really the big deal with everything that what Serum does, it's related to bacteria infection and issues where people are getting sicker. So if your equipment isn't properly sterilized, it can cause a bigger problem.
Right.
Right. So if you're in a hospital, hey, you're naturally going to go into a space where there is infection.
Right.
And people are sick.
Right.
So if you're interacting with patients that are already sick and you add something else, another foreign bacteria into something that they're already with a weakened immune system, you can make them sicker, but possibly kill them. You never know.
Right.
So that's how important this product is.
Yep.
And
that's something that hospitals and surgery centers, for that matter, are
Right.
constantly looking at. It's the hospital-acquired infection, surgical site infection. So as you say, those are a very big deal. And hospitals and surgery centers are doing everything they can to minimize that, because they want to take care of the patient. Obviously, they want them to be able to go home well. They don't want them to come back from some secondary issue. So that's why testing like this is very important. That's why sanitation in hospitals is something that's of utmost importance to hospital staff. Unfortunately, things do happen. People are sick when they go in the hospital, and sometimes that's the way they are. They are sick, and things they may not know that they had something. And it's obvious with COVID recently, that was a big deal. And people go in with COVID, and as we were learning how to manage that, hospital staff got sick, unfortunately. But we're obviously that's something that's under much better control now as we've learned more, and the disease has changed. Don't want to get sidetracked on that, but that's something that's on everyone's minds these days.
So would you say that's like an obstacle? Or has there been any obstacles that you guys have faced with all of this?
A lot of times, and especially now, we are developing new products or newer products. And so if there's something that's there already, and so we're talking about the Pinnacle product line. So we were not the first on the market. We talked about dialysis, where in many cases we were first on the market, and the standards were set and products were designed, and other products were designed and around what we could test. The guidelines that were there then. But coming into the Pinnacle line, it was we see what's out there. We think we can add something to it, but the other products have been there for a while, and and they're accepted. So when you're a fourth, fifth in the market, sometimes there's more challenges that way.
Right. You have to prove how are you different, how are you better, what's the values added by working. So kind of crossing into that, because that's interesting, going into like an obstacle or a challenge. What would you say that Serum's expertise is with working with customers? And I think that's a really big component, because we're always talking about every business has customers.
Sure.
Okay. So what is like your guys's, you look at what's your standard towards providing value for your customers? What's that look like?
So I think, in a good example would be the person I referenced a few minutes ago in Senegal is having the question on 2 different products. So which should I be using? Where do I use them? So trying to be customer focused. I know that's a cliche, sometimes overused, but when people inquire, a lot of times they know what they want or they know what they're looking for, but not everyone does. So you say, well, I need something for this process. What's the testing range I need, or which product is best? So we make 3 different chlorine sanitizer tests for the food safety market. So a lot of times they'll say, hey, I need a chlorine test. Okay, what are you testing? What's your protocol? What's your testing range? What's the parts per million, the ppm that you need? What's the application? So really trying to be customer focused in that way, so that we are providing them with the right product for the application that they need.
So just really bringing that subject matter expertise within the application.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you ever have any of your customers asking for a procedure, or like what is the best practice for testing the scenario?
In some cases, yes. I think
with your product,
of
course.
No,
I'm
I
sure
think,
that would be
I think in some cases, yes. When you look at now being in the business for 30 years, and a lot of the products are well established, that when we make something new, we try to make that to what the guidelines are, what the testing guidelines are. So we've talked about dialysis a lot. So when a chemical is used to disinfect a piece of equipment, they know what the ppm needs to be to disinfect. And then they need to know what the minimum level is so that you don't harm someone with the rinse solution. So all of our tests are designed around those guidelines. And that's been something I think from the very beginning is if there's guidelines in place and you can bring a product that helps someone meet those accepted guidelines, then that's value to the customer. And then,
for sure.
Yeah. And then they're more likely to look at our test as an option. We're not trying to sell them on something. This is a process that you need to do when they haven't been in the past.
So there's another thing too. There's spaces that hopefully not leaking this out, but you guys have actually developed a custom test depending on the application. So you have your product line, but then every once in a while you'll have a customer reach out and say, hey, we need this design specifically for our application. And just to put this back out here, Serim is a research company too. So they have the scientists and they can create these things, everything in-house. Right? Like in-house, everything is local here in Elkhart. They're doing it from start to finish. And building, they're a development. Research and development company.
That's the R&D part.
Yeah, the R&D,
And so, we do have chemists on staff. And so every product we sell is developed and manufactured in our facility here in Elkhart. So we, the scientists, they go through the chemistry. Sometimes it's years of testing with a product to get the right mix, to get the right formulation, if you will, to get, I need something that measures 25 ppm. Okay, that's the target. Okay, let's see where we're at in getting a color.
And the color science.
Color science. So okay, this is a color that people can recognize and they can tell that apart. They can distinguish that color from the next color block up. And usually, if you're at a 25 ppm, then you can't do, with test strips, you can't do a 27 and 29. You got to have a little space. So, and then developing the product and then the colors, something that distinguishes colors that are easily determined and read by the human eye. And everyone sees color differently. So that's important too, that you have that involved with the process.
So do you ever deal with that where you're in a situation with colorblind?
So most of our products aren't very well suited for someone that's colorblind because you're distinguishing colors. There's some that are shades of color. But again, it's
hard to determine.
It's hard to determine that.
If it might be a little easier if there's like a gradient, but like if they're like different colors.
You don't know the saturation levels.
And we always try to do, it's not always possible with every product. But we try to do distinct colors so that things are not a shade of purple. There are a lot of tests for the food safety market where it's a shade of purple. So someone has to light, medium, darker. So we're doing green, yellow, red, blue, something like that that's a little more distinctive. And so that does make that easier. So, but again, that's based on the chemistry that's employed during product development and the knowledge of the scientists and what they can bring in. And sometimes it's a lot of trial and error on their part. So add a little more of this and then you make a batch and then you got to test it. And that wasn't maybe not as perfect as I hope. Let's do a little variation on that and try again. So that's
testing,
why a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error. And so a lot of us in the office, in the facility are involved with R&D some way, shape, or form, because here's a prototype of something. We need everyone here to look at it and see, what color, can you tell this color
perspective
versus something different?
Different pair of eyes.
Different exactly. Everybody looking at it different ways.
Exactly.
So kind of going back to customers, would you say your main focus or goal is to like bring people health and safety?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, obviously. So that is one of the goals and part of the mission of our company is provide products that are meaningful to human health.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I like kind of where you went with that too, Kaylee, health and safety. So there's other products within the line too. Discern, H&E, homemade explosives. That is something, that's something special right there.
I need to know more about that.
Oh yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did, Brian. It's like I see your eyes get a little shifty over there. So I think it's I know, like, it's one of those products, like, you don't really talk a whole lot about.
I mean,
You're hearing
right.
it firsthand right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
But could you share a little bit? Maybe you can't share all of it because
Well,
some
sure.
of it,
Yeah.
but like a little bit of like what kind of goes into that with detecting home explode HMEs.
Right. So that's one of the newer products that we have. And the idea behind it is that when someone's playing home chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. Home
I
chemistry.
like the way you worded that.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, and unfortunately there's people that like to make things
homemade,
thus the name homemade.
Yeah, homemade.
And blow things up. So, with for not the best purposes. So the idea is that there are a number of chemicals that are commonly used, and so our test is designed to find out what those are. So, for example, if you have a police officer that's called to someone's house, there's something going on in the garage.
Here's what I found.
Here's what I found, and that's where discern comes in.
It says, here's what I found.
Here's what I found. So,
here's what I found.
They have a reason to go somewhere and check things out, and they walk in, and there's chemicals sitting around, and looks like someone is up to no good. So,
somebody's cooking something.
Someone's cooking something, and so it is an easy test with water. You mix it up, add it to our test strip, and it will change colors based on the chemicals that are there. So,
and a lot of the time, in some situations with first responders, there's other equipment out there, and you don't have that much time to really kind of go through a whole routine of testing, and you may need to just have a kit right there available, a couple drops on the tip, put it in there, and you can start seeing a reaction immediately. So we won't tell you what it actually tests because that's
we'll stay away from those specifics.
Those specific things. You don't need to know about that. It just does it. If you're interested, you need to contact Serim. But outside of that, it's something that's I know we worked on it for a little bit, with detecting some of that too. So I think that was an interesting product itself. And it's actually pretty fun. Work on.
It is, and it's very interesting, and so that's
let's work on this test
exactly
until that test strip turns the wrong color.
So and that so and I think it's important to note that that's not a product for sale to the general public. So that's really
it's not for everyone.
It's a police department, government entities.
I just wanted to put that out there too, just because I know it's not a readily available product for everyone. And I mean, we kind of dropped the leak out there, but I think if there's any other government entities, first responders, folks that are looking for a product like that, you need to be aware that Serim provides something that I know you guys have to be able to operate quickly. So there may be a product for you to implement within your procedures.
And especially if you think about a smaller police department, budgets may be limited. There's other pieces of equipment, electronics that are very sensitive, very specific, and very expensive. So they're many tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. So it's not something that everyone can afford versus an inexpensive product that kind of gives you an idea on what is there, and then you can proceed to handle it.
How if you need to call in, whoever to handle a situation. And it's pretty much plug and play. You have your kit, you go out there, stock up. What is usually the shelf life on something like that?
So each product is different, and because we make so many different products, I don't have them all memorized. But
how dare you?
I know. Well, we only make 70, 75
only
different
75?
products.
Okay, cool.
So, typically, we kind of go, we try to do a minimum of 18 months shelf life.
Okay.
Most of the products are 2 to 3 years. So again, it depends on the product.
Yeah, depending on what you're ordering. So typically, a customer would have to know what their consumption is, because they don't want product that it's sitting. But it may be time to buy new products. So
Right.
they have a schedule of when to purchase for the shelf of their
right. And most people, especially in the hospital setting, they know those are common use products. They get it from us every couple months, depending on what it is, and they're typically used.
Testing.
Yes.
So what happens if you're trying to use the test strips over the shelf life?
Well, so it depends on the product. Some can be used longer. Typically what happens with chemistry and with a test strip is that reaction time slows down.
Okay.
So
are the colors faded at all?
The colors could fade.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on the product. Each is a little different. So if let's say you have a product that's a 30-second development time. So you dip for a second or two, you take it out and you read it after 30 seconds. It might take 40, 45 seconds to get to the color that it would have if it was in shelf life.
Right.
So we don't, like everything else that has a product shelf life, we don't recommend using it after that. But
and that'll skew their procedure.
Oh, sure.
So if their procedures say check after 30 seconds, it may be inaccurate.
Right.
Right. The accuracy declines. And if you're looking at something where the measurement is critical, for example,
sometimes that's not definitely
right. So
false negatives.
Yeah. If you're looking at the amount of chlorine levels in rinse water of dialysis equipment, it needs to be very low. So if you're using a test that's not in shelf life, that accuracy goes away and you run the risk of harming the next patient. So that is very critical. So again, that's why we recommend not using something past the shelf life. And again, that's all discovered by the R&D team. They test that out and they look at various lengths of time. Products that are medical devices, here's something interesting. Products that are medical devices, the FDA wants to see real-time expiration date. Data. So meaning if you have a 2-year shelf life, you need to hold the product for 2 years, test it, and have the same results as when it was first manufactured. And you have to submit that data to the FDA.
Yeah.
So you can't, some things you can, based on temperature, you can speed up the time to understand what the shelf life is. But if it's a medical product, they need real-time data. So,
and especially detecting if your equipment is still as effective as day one. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it may not be the detergent. It can be something with the equipment faulty.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And then if you're looking at testing a chemical like chlorine or with the high-level disinfection solutions, you're looking at a concentration because that is important for disinfecting, sanitizing the piece of equipment. If you're way past the shelf life, then you're playing with someone's health. So you don't want to do that. So you don't want to do that. Yeah.
So if there was any organization that would be interested in getting hold of this of Serim, what is the best way for them to get a hold of a customer service specialist?
So the best way, easiest way is to, rather than a phone number, is to look at our website, serim.com. Serim is spelled SERIM, www.serim.com. There are links to every product with specific product information. So we have a nice introductory page for every product, but then we also have the product profiles, and for the products that are medical devices, the instructions for use, which is the very detailed information. So that's all on the website, so someone can see that beforehand. There is a contact us page that allows someone to fill out a form and say, hey, I'm interested in purchasing this product, or I'd like to know more about this product. Can you reach out to us? And that allows them to input their contact name in and how they want to be contacted. And oftentimes I'm the person that responds to that. So I see those, and it's amazing how many we get every week through the webpage.
Yes.
So, and then our phone numbers is, so you see those too, right? Because you, or at least you track them and say, well, there's so many this week. So, but our phone numbers on there, customer service phone numbers on there. So if it's an existing customer and they need to reorder something, the phone, picking up the phone is just as easy, especially if you know what it is.
Yeah.
But our phone number's on there that way as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
my
appreciate you
pleasure.
sharing your story.
Yeah. It's my
Yeah.
pleasure to talk with all of you today. So
It's
thank you
great
very
meeting
much.
you.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes the first session here.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Ooh.